Hello friends. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction not only supports the channel's growth, but also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you all for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. My name is Thaddeus Ashenmore. I served as a park ranger in Yellowstone National Park for 23 years. But what I experienced one October morning caused me to leave my badge on the table that very same day. There are some images that once etched into your eyes never leave your mind for the rest of your life. Even after 5 years, I still wake up from nightmares, screaming in my sleep, because of what I saw in that secret cabin. It all started with a routine patrol in the thoroughfare area, one of the most isolated parts of the park. For weeks, there had been strange reports, especially around Bridger Lake. Poaching had increased that season, but these reports were different. Hikers claimed to hear strange sounds at night, guttural screams that sounded like animals, but were also human-like. Some claimed to have seen lights in restricted areas. Even more unsettling were reports of blood trails leading nowhere. The morning was unnaturally quiet when I set out. No birds singing, no rustling of small animals in the underbrush. Even the wind seemed to have died completely. The silence pressed against my eardrums like I was underwater. After 2 decades in these woods, I'd learned to trust my instincts, and every fiber of my being was telling me to turn back. But I had a job to do. The GPS coordinates led me deeper into the wilderness, far from any marked trails. The trees grew denser here, their branches intertwining overhead to create a canopy so thick that barely any sunlight filtered through. It was like walking through perpetual twilight, even though it was barely past noon. That's when I caught the first whiff of it. A smell that anyone who's worked in law enforcement knows too well. Death, but not fresh death. This was older, mixed with something else. Something chemical, something wrong. I followed the scent for another quarter mile, my hand instinctively resting on my service weapon. The forest seemed to close in around me with each step. Then I saw it through the trees. A structure that shouldn't exist. A cabin built from logs so old they were almost black, hidden beneath camouflage netting and covered in moss and branches. No smoke came from the chimney, but fresh boot prints led to the door. Multiple sets, going in and out. Some of them were dragging something heavy. The drag marks were dark, stained into the earth. I radioed my position to dispatch, but got only static in response. Out here, you were truly alone. I approached the cabin slowly, weapon drawn. The door was slightly ajar, darkness visible through the crack. That smell was overwhelming now, making my eyes water. I pushed the door open with my boot, staying to the side of the frame. The main room was empty, except for old furniture covered in dust. But the dust had been disturbed recently. Footprints led to a rug in the corner. I pulled it back and found a trapdoor with a padlock that had been left open. The smell was coming from below. I clicked on my flashlight and descended the wooden stairs. They creaked under my weight, each sound echoing in the darkness below. The basement was larger than the cabin above, carved from the rock itself, and what I saw there still haunts me. Cages lined the walls. Some were empty, some were not. In one corner, I saw her, Delilah Palewater, a hiker who'd been reported missing 3 weeks ago. She was alive, but barely. Her eyes, when they met mine, held a terror I'd never seen before. She tried to speak, but only managed to whisper. "Others," she croaked. "He takes others down further." That's when I noticed the second trapdoor, this one leading even deeper underground. The smell from below was indescribable. I helped Delilah out of her cage first, gave her my water. She was too weak to walk, so I sat her against the wall and told her I'd be right back. The second basement was a nightmare made real. Tables with restraints, tools I didn't want to identify, stains on the concrete floor that would never come out, and on the walls, photographs, dozens of them, all of missing hikers from the past 5 years. Some I recognized from missing persons reports. Others were unknown to me. I heard footsteps above us, heavy boots crossing the cabin floor. Delilah whimpered, pressing herself against the wall. I moved back to the stairs, weapon ready, but the footsteps stopped at the first trapdoor. A voice drifted down, rough and amused. "I know you're down there, Ranger Ashenmore. Saw your truck a mile back. You shouldn't have come alone." I recognized the voice. Silas Rottenwood, a local guide who'd helped us with search and rescue operations for years. He knew these woods better than anyone. We'd trusted him. Families had trusted him with their loved ones. "It's over, Silas," I called up. "Backup's on the way." He laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. "No signal out here, Thaddeus. We both know that. Just you and me and poor Delilah. How is she, by the way? Still breathing?" I heard him moving above, the floorboards creaking. Then the sound of liquid being poured. The smell of gasoline drifted down. My blood turned to ice. 37, he said conversationally. "That's how many I've brought down there over the years. Some lasted days, some lasted weeks. Delilah's lasted the longest. 3 weeks tomorrow. I was quite proud of that." I grabbed Delilah, pulling her to her feet despite her weak protests. We had to get out. The gasoline smell was getting stronger, but Silas was still talking, his voice moving around the cabin above. "You know what the funny part is? Half of them came to me, hired me as their guide, trusted me to keep them safe in the big bad wilderness. And I did, in a way. I kept them safe from the bears and the cold, just not from me." The first flames appeared at the top of the stairs. Smoke began filling the basement. Delilah was coughing, barely conscious. I half carried, half dragged her to the far wall, searching desperately for another way out. That's when I found it. A tunnel, barely wide enough for a person to crawl through. It was our only chance. I pushed Delilah in first, then followed. The tunnel was dirt and rock, partially collapsed in places. We crawled through complete darkness as smoke filled the space behind us. I could hear Silas above, walking on what must have been the forest floor. He was following the tunnel's path, knowing exactly where it led. We emerged from a hidden exit covered by branches, gasping for clean air. But Silas was already there, standing 10 feet away with a hunting rifle. "You know, I never wanted to hurt a ranger," he said, almost sadly. "You folks do good work out here, but you just had to find my special place, didn't you?" Delilah collapsed beside me, her breathing shallow. I stood slowly, hands visible. My weapon was still holstered, but Silas had the drop on us. Behind him, smoke rose from where the cabin was burning. "All those families," I said. "They're still searching for their loved ones. They deserve to know." He shrugged. "They'll never find anything now. Fire will take care of the cabin. The other places, well, I'm the only one who knows where they are. Yellowstone's a big park, Thaddeus. Lots of places to hide things." That's when I saw movement behind him. Another figure emerging from the smoke. At first, I thought it was backup, but the way it moved was wrong. Too stiff, too slow. Then I saw the face, or what was left of it. Silas must have seen my expression change because he started to turn. The figure lunged at him, tackling him to the ground. In the struggle, I saw who it was. Another missing hiker, Marcus Fellbrook, reported missing just last week. But he shouldn't have been able to move, not with those injuries, not with what had been done to him. The rifle went off once, twice. Both men fell still. I rushed forward, kicking the weapon away, but both were dead. Marcus had somehow survived whatever Silas had done to him, had somehow escaped from wherever he'd been kept, and had used his last strength for revenge. I carried Delilah 3 miles to where I could get a signal. The evacuation helicopter arrived 30 minutes later. By the time I led the FBI team back to the site, the cabin was nothing but ashes. But the tunnel was still there, and the second basement, partially collapsed but still containing evidence of the horrors that had taken place. They found remains in 17 different locations across the park over the next 3 months, all places Silas had marked on a map hidden in his house. 37 people, just like he'd said. Families finally had closure, but I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said. How many other Silas Rottenwoods were out there using their knowledge of the wilderness to hunt the most dangerous game? I quit the day they found the last body. Couldn't walk those trails anymore without wondering what was hidden just off the path. Couldn't guide another search and rescue without wondering if we were being led by the very person responsible. Delilah survived, physically at least. She testified at the closed hearings, telling investigators about the weeks of torture, the things Silas had done that I won't repeat here. She said there were others down there with her who didn't make it out, voices in the darkness that went quiet one by one. The Park Service hushed up most of it, of course. Bad for tourism to know that one of Yellowstone's most trusted guides had been hunting visitors for over a decade. They said Silas died in a cabin fire, a tragic accident. They never mentioned Marcus Felbrook's role in ending it. But I know the truth, and now you do too. When you're out there in the wilderness following a trail guide you've hired, remember this story. Remember that sometimes the person you trust to keep you safe from the wilderness might be the most dangerous predator out there. The dreams are the worst part. In them, I'm back in that tunnel, crawling through darkness with Delilah. But in the dreams, we never make it out. The tunnel just goes deeper and deeper, and I can hear Silas laughing somewhere above us, telling us about all the other tunnels, all the other basements, all the other secrets hidden in America's national parks. Sometimes in the dreams, I find other chambers branching off from the tunnel. Each one contains more victims, some still alive, begging for help. But I can't stop crawling forward because Silas is behind us now, crawling too, getting closer. I wake up clawing at my sheets, thinking I'm still in that tunnel. My wife left me because of the screaming. Said she couldn't take another night of me waking up shouting Delilah's name, or Marcus's, or the names of the 37 victims we found. The FBI interviewed me 17 times. They were convinced Silas had partners, that no one man could have done all this alone. They showed me pictures of other missing persons cases from parks across the country. Similar patterns, similar victim profiles, guides who knew the territory better than anyone. They wanted me to help them find the others. I refused. I'd seen enough. Let someone else crawl through those tunnels, find those basements, smell those smells. I moved to the city, as far from wilderness as I could get. But even here, surrounded by concrete and glass, I can't escape it. Because here's the thing that really haunts me. Silas was good at his job. For 20 years, he guided thousands of people safely through Yellowstone. He saved lives during blizzards, found lost children, helped injured hikers. He was a hero to many. How do you reconcile that with what I found in that basement? And if Silas could hide such darkness behind such a normal, even admirable facade, how many others are out there doing the same? Your friendly local guide, the one everyone trusts, the one who knows every trail and every hidden spot. Is he helping you explore the wilderness, or is he selecting his next victim? The Park Service gave me a medal for saving Delilah Palewater. I threw it away. They offered me a promotion, a desk job where I'd never have to go into the field again. I turned it down. How could I sit in an office, pushing papers, knowing what was still out there. Delilah wrote me a letter last year. She's in therapy, trying to move on. She thanked me for saving her life, but also said she wished I'd been faster. 3 weeks she spent in that cage, watching others disappear into the lower basement and never come back. She heard their screams echoing up through the floorboards. She knew her turn was coming. She asked me if I ever went back to the site. I haven't, I won't, but she did. She said she needed to see it in daylight, needed to prove to herself it was just a place, not the supernatural hell it had seemed in her memories. She said there's nothing there now but a depression in the earth where the cabin stood, already being reclaimed by the forest. But she also said she found something the FBI missed. Another trapdoor hidden 50 yards from the cabin site, covered by years of fallen leaves. She didn't open it, she just marked the GPS coordinates and left. She sent them to me, asked me what she should do. I burned the letter. Some doors should stay closed. Some secrets should stay buried. Whatever's down there, let the forest have it. Let time and nature erase what Silas built. Let the victims rest. The FBI finally stopped calling last month. They've moved on to active cases, fresh horrors. Silas Rottenwood is just another file in their archives now, another solved case. But for me, he's every shadow in the trees when I dare to leave the city. He's every friendly stranger who offers to help. He's proof that monsters are real, and they look just like us. I still have nightmares about what would have happened if I hadn't found that cabin when I did. If Delilah had lasted another day before I arrived. If Silas had seen me coming sooner and had time to properly prepare. If that tunnel had been collapsed, or if Marcus hadn't appeared when he did. The worst part is knowing that Silas was right about one thing. Yellowstone is huge. Over 2 million acres of wilderness. How many other cabins are out there? How many other basements? How many other predators using the vastness of our national parks as their hunting grounds? I've talked to other retired rangers since then, carefully, indirectly. Many have their own stories. Things they've found that were never reported. People who went missing and were never searched for because they were never reported missing in the first place. Transients, solo travelers, people without families. Perfect victims for someone like Silas. One ranger from Yosemite told me about finding a cave system that had obviously been used for something horrible. Restraints bolted to the walls, old bloodstains, personal effects from multiple people. But by the time he brought back a team, the cave had been sealed with explosives. Someone had been watching, had known they'd been discovered. Another from the Everglades mentioned finding boats hidden deep in the mangroves, equipped with cages and chains. When the authorities investigated, the boats were gone. But the locals whispered about people who'd gone fishing and never come back, about screams heard over the water on foggy nights. These parks, these beautiful wilderness areas we've set aside for everyone to enjoy. They have dark corners that most people never see. Places where cell phones don't work, where satellites can't penetrate the canopy, where a scream won't carry more than a few dozen yards. Perfect for people like Silas. I think about the families of the 37 victims often. They have closure now, bodies to bury, a story of what happened. But that story is sanitized, edited by the Park Service and the FBI to remove the worst details. They don't know about the photographs on the walls, the tools in the basement, the things Delilah won't talk about even in therapy. Is it better that way? To know your loved one is dead but not know how they suffered? Or would the truth, horrible as it is, be better than imagination? I don't have answers. I just have memories that won't fade and dreams that won't stop. Sometimes I get calls from current rangers. Word's gotten out about what I found, despite the official silence. They want advice on what to look for, how to spot another Silas before he can hurt anyone. I tell them to trust no one, to always verify, to never go into the backcountry alone. But I know that's not realistic. The job requires trust, requires working with locals, requires solo patrols. The truth is, there's no way to prevent another Silas. The wilderness is too vast, too easy to hide in, and people like him, they're patient. They can wait years, decades, building trust, establishing themselves as pillars of the community. By the time anyone suspects, it's far too late. Delilah called me last week. First time we'd spoken since the trial. She's moving to Alaska, of all places. Says she needs to face her fears, needs to prove the wilderness doesn't own her. I wanted to tell her she's crazy, that she should stay in the city where it's safe. But I know that's an illusion. Nowhere is really safe. At least, in the wilderness, you know there are predators. In the city, they hide better. She asked me to come with her, to be her guide for her first hike back into the wild. I said no, I can't. The thought of being back out there, surrounded by trees, miles from help, it makes me physically sick. She understood. She said maybe that's the difference between us. She survived 3 weeks in that basement. I only saw it for minutes. But those minutes broke something in me that her weeks of torture didn't break in her. Or maybe she's just stronger than me. Maybe surviving that horror gave her a strength I'll never have. Maybe facing death that closely and surviving gives you a different perspective on fear. All I know is that I'll never set foot in a national park again. I've been seeing a therapist myself, trying to process what happened. She says I have PTSD, survivor's guilt, even though I wasn't really in danger. She says the trauma of discovering such evil, of realizing someone I knew was capable of such things, it's a valid wound. But knowing that doesn't make the dreams stop. The therapist asked me to write down the experience, said it might help to get it all out. This is that attempt. If you're reading this, maybe you're another ranger who's found something horrible. Maybe you're a hiker who's noticed things that don't add up about your guide. Maybe you're just someone who loves the wilderness and wants to understand its dangers. Whatever brought you to this story, remember this. Evil doesn't announce itself. It doesn't wear a sign or give off warning signals. It smiles, it helps, it earns trust. Silas Rottenwood saved my life once, 5 years before I found his cabin. Pulled me out of a ravine when I'd broken my ankle on a solo patrol. I trusted him completely. That trust nearly cost Delilah Palewater her life. The wilderness is beautiful, essential, worth preserving. But it's also vast and unforgiving, with plenty of room for monsters to hide. When you're out there, enjoying the majesty of nature, stay alert. Watch for signs, question coincidences. And if your instincts tell you something's wrong, listen to them. Because somewhere out there, maybe in Yellowstone, maybe in another park, there's another cabin hidden in the woods. Another basement full of cages. Another person like Silas, patient and trusted, waiting for the perfect victim to guide into the darkness. I know, because the FBI showed me the statistics. People go missing in national parks every year. Many are found, but many aren't. The numbers that are never found, that simply vanish without a trace, it's higher than you'd think. Higher than the Park Service wants you to know. Some of those are accidents, certainly. Falls, animal attacks, exposure. But how many are victims of people like Silas? How many trusted the wrong guide, took the wrong trail, accepted help from the wrong stranger? We'll never know. The wilderness keeps its secrets well. This is my story, my confession, my warning. I was a park ranger for 23 years. I thought I knew the dangers of the wilderness. I was wrong. The most dangerous predator in our national parks isn't bears or mountain lions or venomous snakes. It's the human beings who use the isolation and vastness to hunt other human beings. I'm Thaddeus Ashenmore, former park ranger, and I'm telling you this because someone needs to know. Someone needs to be warned. When you're out there in the beauty of nature, remember that beauty can hide unimaginable horror. Remember Delilah Palewater, who survived 3 weeks of hell. Remember Marcus Fellbrook, who gave his life to stop a monster. Remember the 37 victims who weren't as lucky. And remember Silas Rottenwood, who taught me that the most dangerous animals in our national parks walk on 2 legs and smile when they offer to help. Stay safe out there. Trust, but verify. And if something feels wrong, get out. Don't investigate. Don't try to be a hero. Just get out and report it to authorities. Let someone else find the cabins, the basements, the tunnels. Let someone else face the monsters. Because once you've seen what I've seen, once you know what I know, the wilderness is never the same. It's not a place of peace and beauty anymore. It's a hunting ground, and you never know if you're the hunter or the prey until it's too late. The sun is setting now as I write this final paragraph. Even here in the city, I can see the sky turning red through my window. It reminds me of that day, the smoke rising above the trees, the fire consuming Silas's house of horrors. But fire doesn't cleanse everything. The evil he did, the pain he caused, it doesn't burn away. It lingers, like smoke, poisoning everything it touches. I'll never be free of what I found in Yellowstone. It's part of me now, a dark knowledge I can't unlearn. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that basement. Every time I hear about someone going missing in a national park, I wonder if there's another Silas out there, another trusted guide leading people to their doom. This is why I quit. This is why I'll never go back. Because the wilderness I loved, the job I devoted my life to, it's all tainted now. Poisoned by the knowledge of what can hide in those beautiful forests, those majestic mountains, those pristine lakes. The parks are still there, still beautiful, still worth visiting. But now you know what I know. Now you carry the same burden. The question is, what will you do with it? Will you stay away like me, hiding in the safety of civilization? Or will you still venture out but with new eyes, watching for signs, alert to dangers that have nothing to do with nature? Whatever you choose, remember this story. Remember that monsters are real, and they look just like us. Remember that trust can be a weapon in the wrong hands. And remember that sometimes the most beautiful places hide the darkest secrets. The wilderness is calling. It always is. That siren song of adventure, of freedom, of natural beauty. But now you know what else might be calling. What else might be waiting. What else might be watching from behind the trees, patient and smiling, ready to guide you into the depths of hell. This is my warning, my testimony, my final word as a park ranger. Take it seriously. Your life might depend on it. Because out there in the vast wilderness of America's national parks, Silas Rottenwood wasn't unique. He was just the one who got caught. How many others are still out there, still guiding, still hunting? We'll never know. But they're there, waiting, watching, smiling as they offer to show you the best trails, the hidden spots, the places tourists never see, the places no one ever returns from. Sleep well tonight, safe in your bed, far from the wilderness. But know that tomorrow someone will hire a guide for a backcountry adventure. Someone will trust a friendly local with their safety. Someone will follow a stranger into the depths of the forest. And maybe, just maybe, they'll become victim number 38. My name is Jebediah Crow Hollow, and for 18 years I served as a park ranger in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. What I uncovered in the autumn of 2019 still keeps me awake at night, wondering how many others knew and said nothing. Some evils are so vast, so organized, that one person can barely comprehend their scope. It began with a report of illegal camping near Klingman's Dome. October was always busy with leaf peepers, but this was different. Multiple hikers had reported seeing vehicles on service roads that should have been locked, always at night, always heading deeper into the restricted areas. The vehicles were described as medical vans, the kind you see at blood drives, but they had no markings, no logos. My supervisor dismissed it as probably researchers or perhaps confused tourists, but something nagged at me. The reports were too consistent, too specific. The witnesses didn't know each other but described the same unmarked white vans, the same times of night, the same service roads that civilians shouldn't even know existed. I decided to investigate on my own time. Told my wife I was doing overtime patrol, which wasn't entirely a lie. The first 3 nights I found nothing. The forest was quiet, peaceful even. But on the 4th night, October 23rd, I saw them. 2 white vans, moving without headlights down a service road near the Tennessee-North Carolina border. I followed at a distance, my Ranger vehicle's lights off, using only moonlight to navigate. The vans moved with purpose, drivers who clearly knew these roads well. They turned onto a path I didn't even know existed, barely wide enough for vehicles, carved between ancient trees. I had to make a choice: follow and risk detection, or mark the location and come back in daylight. I chose to follow. That decision changed my life forever. The path led to a clearing I'd never seen in 18 years of patrolling these mountains. In the center stood a structure that looked like a small medical facility. Prefabricated buildings connected by covered walkways, generators humming softly, but no lights visible from outside thanks to blackout curtains. It was sophisticated, expensive, hidden in one of the most remote parts of the park. I parked and approached on foot, my hand on my weapon, though I knew I was outgunned if this was what I suspected. Through a gap in one of the curtains, I could see inside. What I witnessed there made me physically ill. Operating tables, medical equipment, coolers marked with biohazard symbols, and people in surgical scrubs moving with practiced efficiency. But this wasn't a legitimate medical facility. The patients on those tables weren't there voluntarily. I could see the restraints, the IV drips keeping them sedated. That's when I saw her. Serafina Rotgrave, a respected doctor from Knoxville who regularly volunteered for park medical emergencies. I'd known her for years, had coffee with her after search and rescue operations. She was removing something from one of the sedated figures, placing it carefully in a medical transport container. I needed evidence. My word against hers, against all of theirs, wouldn't be enough. I carefully photographed everything I could see through various windows, my phone on silent, praying the flash was disabled. Through another window, I saw something that made my blood freeze. Body bags stacked in a refrigerated truck, too many to count. A hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun, reaching for my weapon, but stopped when I saw who it was. Phineas Merrofeld, a fellow ranger, someone I'd worked alongside for a decade. He was in civilian clothes, but his expression told me everything. He was part of this. "Jebediah," he said quietly, almost sadly. "You shouldn't be here. Phineas, what the hell is this?" He glanced toward the facility, then back at me. "It's bigger than you think. Bigger than you can imagine. Walk away now. Forget what you've seen, and you'll live. Your family will live." "You're threatening my family?" "I'm trying to save them. This operation has connections you can't fight. Judges, senators, police chiefs. People who need what we provide. People who will do anything to keep it running." I heard footsteps approaching. Multiple sets. Phineas stepped closer, his voice urgent. "They know you're here. They've known since you followed the vans. This is your only chance. Walk away. Those are people in there, being harvested like cattle. They're nobody. Homeless, addicts, people who won't be missed. Their sacrifice saves important lives. CEOs, politicians, children of the wealthy who need organs. The greater good, Jebediah. The footsteps were closer now. I could see flashlights in the trees. Phineas pulled out his own weapon, but didn't point it at me. Not yet. I have a wife, I said. 2 kids. Then think of them. This organization doesn't leave loose ends. If you try to expose this, they won't just kill you. Your wife will have an accident. Your kids will disappear. And everything will continue anyway, because you're one man against an empire. The flashlights were almost upon us. I had seconds to decide, die a hero and condemn my family, or live a coward and let this atrocity continue. In that moment, I hated myself for what I chose. "Smart man," Phineas said, seeing my shoulders slump in defeat. He raised his voice. "False alarm. It's Ranger Crowhollow. He got lost following what he thought were poachers." Serafina Rotgrave emerged from the darkness, still in her surgical scrubs with a coat thrown over them. Her expression was cold, clinical, like I was a problem to be solved. "Ranger Crowhollow," she said. "Phineas vouches for you, says you're smart enough to understand the situation. Is he correct?" I nodded, unable to speak. She studied me for a long moment, then smiled. It was the same warm smile she'd given when thanking me for helping with injured hikers. It made my skin crawl. "Good, then you understand that what happens here saves lives. Important lives. The donors are carefully selected from those who contribute nothing to society. Their sacrifice means children of influential families receive the organs they need. Researchers get materials for groundbreaking studies. The cycle of life continues, just managed more efficiently." "How many?" I managed to ask. "Over the years, hundreds, maybe thousands. This facility has been operating for 15 years. We're not the only one. There's a network across the country, hidden in federal lands where local law enforcement has no jurisdiction, and federal oversight is minimal." She must have seen the horror on my face because she continued. "Don't look so shocked. Where did you think black market organs came from? Some back alley in Mexico? No. They come from professional operations like this, run by qualified doctors, ensuring quality and compatibility. The clients pay millions for what we provide. The Park Service has senior members who are compensated generously to look the other way. Your supervisor, for instance. He's the one who told us you were investigating. We've been watching you for days, Jebediah. If you hadn't followed the vans tonight, we would have approached you eventually. Either to recruit you or, well, let's be grateful it didn't come to that." Phineas stepped forward. "He won't talk. He has too much to lose." Serafina nodded. "I believe you, but insurance is always prudent." She pulled out her phone, showed me the screen. Security footage of me at the facility, edited to look like I was part of the operation. Amazing what technology can do these days. This video is stored in multiple locations. If anything happens to us, if this operation is exposed, you'll be implicated as a key player. Your family will lose everything. Your pension, your reputation, their future. I felt trapped, suffocated. What do you want from me? Nothing. Live your life, do your job, and occasionally, when we need it, you'll patrol certain areas at certain times and see nothing. You'll file reports that support our cover stories. Missing hikers who got lost and were never found, that's all. And if I refuse, she showed me another video on her phone. My wife at the grocery store. My children at school. Recent footage. I think you're too intelligent to refuse. They let me leave that night, but I wasn't free. I was a prisoner in my own life, forced to continue working alongside Phineas, forced to smile and wave at Serafina when she came to the park for her volunteer work. Forced to live with the knowledge of what was happening in those mountains. The missing persons reports continued. Hikers who vanished without a trace. Homeless camps in nearby cities that seemed to empty overnight. And I had to investigate them. Had to file reports saying I found nothing suspicious, knowing exactly where those people had ended up. Phineas tried to make me feel better about it. Told me about the children who received hearts and lived because of what we were doing. Showed me news articles about medical breakthroughs using research materials the organization provided. He even offered to cut me in on the money. Said I could make more in a month than I made in a year as a ranger. I refused the money. I couldn't stop what was happening, but I wouldn't profit from it. That was my line, pathetic as it was. The worst part was the families. When they came to the park searching for their missing loved ones, I had to look them in the eyes and lie. Tell them we were doing everything we could. Promise them we wouldn't give up. All while knowing their son or daughter or sister was likely already parceled out to the highest bidders. There was one family that broke me, the Waywards. Their daughter Emma had been backpacking solo, an experienced hiker who knew the mountains well. She was exactly the type the organization avoided. Someone who would be missed. Someone with a family who wouldn't give up searching. But she'd seen something she shouldn't have. Her parents came every weekend for 3 months, putting up posters, organizing search parties. The father, William, pulled me aside one day and begged me to tell him the truth. Said he could see it in my eyes that I knew something. I wanted to tell him, God. I wanted to tell him everything. But I thought of my own children and said nothing. He killed himself 6 months later. The mother followed a year after that. 2 more casualties of the operation that would never be counted in its toll. I started drinking heavily. My wife noticed the change but attributed it to job stress. Phineas warned me to pull myself together, that the organization didn't tolerate liabilities. So I functioned barely, went through the motions of my job while dying inside. Then, 3 years after that night in the clearing, everything changed. A journalist named Rebecca started investigating disappearances in national parks. She was smart, thorough, and she noticed patterns others had missed. She came to interview me, and I could tell she suspected something. She showed me data she'd compiled. Clusters of disappearances near certain parks. Higher rates than could be explained by accidents or animal attacks. And all in areas with limited federal oversight, with certain rangers who seemed to be involved in multiple cases. My name was on her list. I told her I couldn't help her, but she didn't give up. She kept digging, kept pushing. Then one day, she disappeared too. Her car was found at a trailhead, but she was gone. The official report said she'd gone hiking alone and gotten lost. I knew better. That was my breaking point. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't be complicit in murder, even to save my own family. I decided to gather evidence and take it to the FBI. Consequences be damned. I spent weeks carefully documenting everything. Taking photos when I could, recording conversations, copying files. I was careful, but not careful enough. Phineas figured out what I was doing. He confronted me at my house one night when my family was away. Told me I was making a mistake that would cost everyone I loved. I told him I didn't care anymore, that living with this secret was killing me anyway. That's when he told me something that changed everything. Your wife knows, he said. I didn't believe him at first, but he showed me evidence. Financial records showing deposits into an account she'd hidden from me. Photos of her meeting with Serafina. She'd known for 2 years and had been taking money to ensure our silence. My world collapsed. The one person I thought I was protecting, the one pure thing in my life, was as tainted as everything else. When I confronted her, she broke down crying. Said she did it for our children's future, for their college funds, for the life we couldn't afford on a ranger's salary. She begged me to let it go, to think of our kids. But I couldn't. The weight of all those victims, all those families destroyed, it was too much. I told her I was going to the FBI anyway. The next morning, my children didn't wake up. The doctors called it a rare form of poisoning, something environmental. They survived, barely, but with permanent neurological damage. They would need constant care for the rest of their lives. Care that would cost everything we had and more. Serafina visited them in the hospital. She stood beside me as I watched my children through the ICU glass and spoke quietly. "This is reversible," she said. "Experimental treatment. Not available through normal channels, but I have access. Your children could make a full recovery. All you have to do is forget your plans with the FBI." I looked at my children, hooked to machines, fighting for their lives because of what I'd tried to do. I looked at my wife, broken and sobbing, and I surrendered completely. "I'll do whatever you want." My children recovered. Miraculously, the doctor said. Within a month, they were back to normal, playing and laughing as if nothing had happened. But I knew the truth. They were hostages now, their health dependent on my continued cooperation. I threw away all the evidence I'd gathered. I became an active participant in the operation, helping to identify potential targets, covering up disappearances, ensuring the facility remained hidden. I told myself I was doing it for my children, but the truth was, I was a coward who chose his own family over countless others. The operation continued to grow. More facilities were built in other parks. The network expanded internationally. Serafina was promoted to oversee the entire eastern region. She offered me a position as security coordinator, overseeing rangers at multiple parks who were part of the system. I accepted. What else could I do? I was in too deep, my family's lives literally dependent on my cooperation. I became good at it too, identifying rangers who could be corrupted or blackmailed, finding new locations for facilities, creating protocols to avoid detection. But the guilt never left. Every missing person, every grieving family, every organ that saved some rich person's life at the cost of someone society deemed expendable, it all added to the weight crushing my soul. 5 years passed. My children grew up happy and healthy, never knowing what their father had become. My wife and I stayed together, but our marriage was a hollow shell. We couldn't look at each other without remembering what we'd done, what we'd allowed. Then the pandemic hit in 2020. The operation saw it as an opportunity. So many deaths that a few more wouldn't be noticed. Homeless populations isolated and vulnerable. Hospital systems overwhelmed and unable to track organ donations properly. It was their most profitable period ever, but it was also their downfall. They got greedy, sloppy, took too many people too quickly, and someone noticed. Not law enforcement, not journalists, but another criminal organization that didn't appreciate the competition. The cartel war was quick and brutal. I woke up one morning to find Phineas's house burned to the ground with him inside. Serafina disappeared, her facility raided and destroyed, though not by law enforcement. Bodies of organization members turned up in parks across the country. Victims of professional hits, I waited for them to come for me, but they never did. Maybe I was too small a fish. Maybe they didn't know about my involvement. Or maybe leaving me alive to live with what I'd done was punishment enough. With the organization destroyed, I could have come forward. Could have told the authorities everything. But what good would it do? The evidence was gone, the perpetrators dead or vanished, and my family would be destroyed by the revelation of our involvement. So I stayed silent. Resigned from the Park Service, citing PTSD from finding too many bodies over the years. Moved my family to another state. Tried to start over. But you can't run from what you've done. The guilt follows you, haunts you, defines you. My children are teenagers now. They think their father is a hero who spent years protecting people in national parks. They don't know about the people I failed to protect, the people I actively helped disappear. They don't know their college funds came from blood money, that their lives were bought with the organs of the innocent. My wife and I finally divorced last year. She couldn't take the guilt anymore, started talking about confessing. I had to remind her what that would mean for our children. Not just the shame, but potentially criminal charges when they became adults if the money could be traced to them. So she left instead, unable to bear living with me or the secret. I'm alone now with my guilt and my nightmares. I dream about the facility, about the bodies in the coolers, about the families searching for loved ones who were already gone. I dream about Emma Wayward and her parents, about Rebecca, about all the nameless victims whose only crime was being vulnerable. Sometimes I research organ recipient lists from those years, trying to figure out who benefited from the horror. I've identified a few: a senator's son who received a heart, a tech billionaire who got a new liver, a judge's grandchild who needed kidneys. They're all living happy, successful lives, never knowing the cost of their survival. I've written this confession dozens of times, always destroying it before I could send it anywhere. What's the point? The organization is gone. The victims can't be brought back. The recipients didn't know where their organs came from. The only people who would suffer from the truth are my children, innocent of everything except being born to a monster. But I'm writing it again because someone needs to know. Someone needs to understand that our national parks, these treasures of natural beauty, were used as killing fields for profit. That rangers you trusted, doctors you respected, officials you elected, were all part of a system that treated human beings as spare parts. The Great Smoky Mountains are still beautiful. Families still camp there, hike there, make memories there. They don't know about the facility that operated for 15 years in their midst. They don't know about the people who disappeared, whose last views were of those ancient mountains before they were sedated for the final time. I go back sometimes alone, not to the facility site. That's been scrubbed clean, returned to nature. But to the trails where victims were taken, the overlooks where they were last seen. I leave flowers, unnamed memorials to unnamed victims. It doesn't absolve me, nothing can, but maybe it means something to whatever's left of their spirits. The Park Service knows something happened. After the organization collapsed, there was a quiet internal investigation. Rangers like me who resigned suddenly were questioned, but without evidence, without bodies, without anyone willing to talk, they couldn't prove anything. They just increased security, changed protocols, and hoped it wouldn't happen again. But I know it will happen again. Maybe not the same way. Maybe not in the same places. But somewhere in the vast wilderness of America's parks, someone will realize how easy it is to make people disappear. How much money can be made from those who won't be missed. How simple it is to corrupt those sworn to protect. Because here's the truth I learned. Everyone has a price. For some, it's money. For others, it's threats. For me, it was my children's lives. The organization knew this, exploited it, built an empire on it. And as long as there are desperate people willing to pay millions for organs, there will be others willing to provide them by any means necessary. I think about going to the media, doing a tell-all interview. But I know what would happen. Without proof, I'd be dismissed as a conspiracy theorist. With proof, my family would be destroyed. Either way, the truth would be buried, dismissed, forgotten, so I live with it. Every day, every night. The knowledge of what I've done, what I've allowed, what I've covered up. The faces of the missing haunt me. The families destroyed by false hope torture me. The weight of being a coward who chose his own family over justice crushes me. This is my confession, my testimony, my burden. I was a park ranger who became a monster to save his children. I let hundreds die so mine could live. I covered up murder, human trafficking, organ harvesting, all while wearing the uniform of a protector. The mountains don't judge. They've seen worse over the millennia. But I judge myself every moment of every day. And that judgment is this: I am guilty. Guilty of cowardice, of selfishness, of prioritizing my family over humanity. Guilty of letting evil flourish because fighting it would cost me too much. Some rangers quit because they can't handle finding bodies. I quit because I helped create them. Some have nightmares about what they've seen. I have nightmares about what I've done. Some struggle with PTSD from traumatic rescues. I struggle with the knowledge that I prevented rescues that could have saved lives. The Great Smoky Mountains are still there, still beautiful, still drawing millions of visitors each year. But for me, they're a crime scene. Every trail is a potential abduction site. Every scenic overlook is a place where someone might have been taken. Every remote area is a potential facility location. I've been told that several new missing persons cases in the park match the old patterns. People vanishing without a trace from specific areas. The same types of victims: homeless, addicts, people without strong family connections. The new rangers investigate, find nothing, file reports. Just like I used to. Maybe the organization rebuilt. Maybe it's a new group using the old playbook. Maybe it never really ended, just went deeper underground. I don't know, and I don't want to know. I've done enough damage. Let someone else fight this battle. Someone who hasn't already sold their soul. My children will read this someday after I'm gone. They'll learn what their father really was. They'll understand why their college was paid for, why their mother left, why I drink myself to sleep every night. They'll hate me, and they should. But maybe they'll also understand that everything I did, every horrible choice I made, was to keep them alive and healthy. Or maybe they won't understand. Maybe they'll wish I'd chosen justice over their lives. Maybe they'll be right. I don't know anymore. All I know is that I'm trapped in a prison of my own making. Bars built from the bones of victims I helped create. This is my story, my confession, my damnation. I was Ranger Jebediah Crow Hollow, and I was part of something evil that operated in our national parks for over a decade. I saved my family by sacrificing others. I chose to be a living coward rather than a dead hero. The mountains remember everything. They've seen the Cherokees forced from their homes, the Civil War battles, the logging that nearly destroyed them. Now they've seen organ harvesting and human trafficking. They'll keep those secrets like they keep all the others, silent and eternal. But I can't keep them anymore. This confession is my only attempt at something like redemption, though I know redemption is impossible. The dead can't forgive. The missing can't absolve. The families destroyed can't understand. All I can do is warn you. When you visit our national parks, stay on the marked trails. Don't hike alone, don't trust too easily. And if you see something suspicious, don't investigate yourself. Report it to authorities outside the Park Service. Multiple agencies make noise, create records. Because somewhere in those parks, maybe in new facilities, maybe with new players, the harvesting continues. People disappear. Organs appear on the black market. Lives are saved at the cost of other lives. And rangers like I was, corrupted and compromised, help it all happen while wearing the uniform of protectors. The wilderness is vast and beautiful, but it hides horrors you can't imagine. I know because I was part of those horrors. I was the ranger who didn't save you, who helped them take you, who filed the report saying you were lost when I knew exactly where you were. This is my confession. May God forgive me, because I never will. My name is Nathaniel Bleakwater, and I was a park ranger in the Everglades National Park for 16 years. What happened in the summer of 2018 destroyed everything I believed about good and evil, about heroes and victims. Sometimes when you try to save someone, you become the one who needs saving. It started with a missing persons report that didn't fit the usual pattern. Augustus Ravenshire, a wealthy real estate developer from Miami, had vanished during what was supposed to be a routine fishing trip in the 10,000 Islands region. His boat was found anchored near Pavilion Key, engine still running, all his equipment aboard, but no sign of him. What made it unusual was the ransom demand that came 12 hours later. Not to his family, but to the Park Service directly. The kidnapper wanted us, specifically wanted me, to deliver the money. $5 million to be brought to a coordinate deep in the mangroves, alone, no backup, no weapons. The message was clear about why they wanted me. I had a reputation for knowing the Everglades better than anyone, for finding people others couldn't. But more than that, I had found something 3 months earlier that I should have reported but didn't. A drug runner's cache hidden in a cypress dome, which I had destroyed rather than processing it through proper channels. I thought I was doing the right thing, keeping the drugs off the streets quickly. The kidnapper knew about it, had photos of me burning the stash. They threatened to expose my vigilante justice if I didn't cooperate. My career would be over, my pension gone, possible criminal charges. But worse, they said Augustus would die slowly, painfully, recorded for his family to watch if I didn't follow their exact instructions. I should have reported it immediately. Should have let the FBI handle it. But pride and fear made me stupid. I thought I could handle it myself, save Augustus and keep my secret. I convinced his family to provide the money privately, told them I had a lead that required discretion. The coordinates led to a place I knew well, a raised shell mound deep in the backwater, accessible only by airboat at high tide or on foot through miles of sawgrass and mud at low tide. They wanted me to come at low tide, on foot, carrying the money. It would take hours, leave me exhausted and vulnerable. I set out before dawn, the money in a waterproof pack, my service weapon left behind as instructed. The journey was hellish. Sawgrass sliced through my clothes, leaving bloody cuts on my arms and legs. Mud sucked at my boots, sometimes up to my knees. Mosquitoes formed clouds so thick I could barely breathe without inhaling them. But I pressed on, driven by the thought of Augustus somewhere out there, counting on me to save him. The man had 3 kids, grandchildren. He didn't deserve whatever horror he was experiencing because he chose the wrong day to go fishing. As I got closer to the coordinates, I started finding markers. Pieces of Augustus's clothing tied to mangrove roots. His wallet emptied and hanging from a branch. His wedding ring placed on a stick jutting from the mud. A trail of breadcrumbs leading me deeper into the maze of islands and channels. The sun was brutal, reflecting off the water and beating down through the sparse canopy. I was dehydrated, exhausted, disoriented, despite my experience. That's when I realized this wasn't just a ransom drop. It was designed to break me down, make me weak and vulnerable. I reached the coordinates at what should have been noon, though the mangrove canopy made it feel like dusk. There was a chickee there, one of the old Seminole structures, but modified, reinforced, caged sections added underneath. And inside one of those cages, Augustus Ravenshire. He was alive but in bad shape, severely dehydrated, covered in infected insect bites, one leg clearly broken and crudely splinted. When he saw me, he started crying, reaching through the bars. "Thank God," he rasped. "Please, get me out. She's insane, completely insane." She. I hadn't expected that. The voice on the phone had been disguised, electronic. But before I could ask more, I heard movement behind me. I turned to find a woman standing at the edge of the clearing, pointing a shotgun at me. Morgana Thornwick. I recognized her immediately. She was a biologist who worked for the Park Service, someone I'd worked with on several wildlife surveys. Smart, dedicated, passionate about protecting the Everglades. We'd even had dinner once, a group thing after a successful python removal operation. "Hello, Nathaniel," she said, her voice calm, conversational. "I was wondering when you'd figure out it was me." "Morgana, what is this? What are you doing?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Justice. Something you should understand, given your little bonfire with those drugs. We're not so different, you and I. We both know the system is broken. Augustus hasn't done anything, hasn't he?" Her voice turned sharp. "Do you know who Augustus Ravenshire really is? What his company does?" I glanced at Augustus, who was shaking his head frantically, trying to speak through cracked lips. Morgana continued. "His development company has been illegally draining wetlands for 15 years, bribing inspectors, forging environmental assessments, destroying crucial habitat for endangered species. I've reported him 17 times, 17, and nothing happens because he pays the right people. So you kidnapped him? I'm showing him consequences. He's spent 5 days living in the habitat he's destroyed, drinking the polluted water his developments create, feeling what the animals feel when their homes vanish." She was clearly unstable, but I had to keep her talking, look for an opportunity. "Morgana, this isn't justice. It's kidnapping. Let him go, take the money, disappear. You don't have to do this." She laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. "The money? I don't want his money. It's blood money, earned by destroying everything I've spent my life trying to protect. I wanted you here for a different reason." "Me? Why?" "Because you're going to help me. You're going to be part of the solution." She moved closer, the shotgun never wavering. That's when I noticed the other cages under the chickie. 3 of them, all empty but recently used. Bloodstains on the floors, scratch marks on the bars. Morgana, who else was in those cages? Other developers, other destroyers. They didn't survive the rehabilitation program. Augustus has lasted the longest. He's tougher than he looks. My blood ran cold. Where are the bodies? Return to the ecosystem. The gators and pythons need to eat, circle of life. The same circle they broke with their greed. Augustus was sobbing now, begging me to help him. But Morgana wasn't done. "You see, Nathaniel, I've been watching you. You understand that sometimes the law isn't enough. Sometimes you have to take direct action. Those drugs you burned could have gone through the courts for years, maybe been returned to the dealers on a technicality, but you ended it. Decisively. That's not the same as murder. Isn't it? How many people die from overdoses? How many families destroyed? You prevented that. I'm preventing the destruction of entire ecosystems. We're the same." She had a point, and that terrified me more than the gun. Had my own vigilante action led to this? Had I inspired her somehow? "I brought the money," I said, slowly removing the pack. "Take it and let us both go. I told you, I don't want the money. I want you to understand. To see what I see, to join me." She gestured with the gun toward another structure I hadn't noticed. a small shed covered in camouflage netting. Open it. I did, and immediately wished I hadn't. Inside were detailed maps of the Everglades marked with dozens of red X's, each one labeled with a name and date. Some dated back 5 years. Every red X is justice served, Morgana said proudly. Polluters, developers, poachers, people who thought they could destroy this place without consequences. There were so many marks, so many names. Some I recognized from missing persons reports we'd never solved. People we assumed had gotten lost, been taken by gators, suffered accidents. "You're a serial killer," I said, the reality hitting me hard. "I'm a protector, just like you. Or what you could be if you had the courage." She moved to Augustus's cage, unlocked it, and dragged him out. He was too weak to resist. She forced him to his knees in the mud. "Here's your choice, Nathaniel. Join me, and Augustus lives. He'll disappear, assume a new identity somewhere far from here, never allowed to return to Florida. Or refuse and watch him die. Then you'll take his place in the cage until you either agree or join the others in the ecosystem." "You're insane." "Am I?" "Look around. The Everglades are dying. Development, pollution, climate change. In 50 years, this will all be gone unless someone takes drastic action. The legal system won't do it. The government won't do it. So I'm doing it." Augustus was begging, promising to change, to donate to conservation, to do anything she wanted. Morgana pressed the shotgun to his head. "Choose, Nathaniel. Be a hero and save him by joining me, or be a coward and watch him die." I thought about my options. She was 15 feet away. Even if I rushed her, she'd have time to kill Augustus and probably me. My radio was back at the ranger station. My weapon, too. No one knew where I was. "How do I know you'll let him live if I agree?" "Because I keep my word. Ask the 3 developers who took my deal. They're living new lives in other states, terrified to ever return but alive." I doubted that was true, but what choice did I have? "Okay, I'll join you. Let him go." She smiled, that same disturbing expression. "I knew you'd see reason, but first, you need to prove your commitment." She pulled a knife from her belt, tossed it at my feet. "Mark him, brand him as a destroyer. Let him carry the reminder forever." Augustus screamed, tried to crawl away, but he was too weak. I picked up the knife, my hand shaking. "I can't. You burn those drugs without hesitation. This is just flesh. It heals. Do it or he dies." I looked at Augustus, this man I was supposed to save, and made a choice I still have nightmares about. I carved the word killer into his forehead. Not deep enough to cause serious damage, but deep enough to scar. He screamed, passed out from the pain. Morgana clapped, actually clapped like I'd performed a trick. "Perfect. Now you're truly one of us, part of the solution." She moved to help Augustus, applying a field dressing to his wound with practiced efficiency. That's when I made my move. The shotgun was lowered, her attention on Augustus. I charged. We fought in the mud and water, wrestling for the gun. She was stronger than she looked, driven by fanatic passion. But I had weight and reach on her. The gun went off once, twice, both shots going wild. Then I had it, turned it on her. She didn't look scared, she looked disappointed. "I thought you were different," she said. "I thought you understood. I understand you're sick. You need help." "No, what I need is time. Time I don't have, the Everglades don't have." She pulled something from her pocket, a dead man's switch connected to something. I realized too late what it was. "Insurance," she said. If I don't check in every 12 hours, information goes to every news outlet in Florida. Photos of you burning those drugs, documentation of every cover-up the Park Service has done, every bribe they've taken from developers, every environmental report they've buried. It will destroy the entire system. You're bluffing. Am I? Can you afford to find out? Shoot me, and by tomorrow morning you'll be in federal prison. The Park Service will be gutted, and Augustus's company will use the chaos to push through every development they've been planning. She stood slowly, hands visible but unafraid. Here's the new deal. You let me go. You take Augustus back, tell them you found him, but I escaped. I disappear, never to return. The information stays buried. And if I don't, then we both go down, along with dozens of others who thought they were protecting the Everglades but were really just enabling its destruction through incompetence and corruption. I kept the gun on her, mind racing. If she was telling the truth, exposing her would destroy everything. If she was lying, she'd escape to kill again. Augustus was unconscious, bleeding, needing immediate medical attention. How do I know you'll really disappear? Because I'm tired, Nathaniel. 5 years of this, and nothing has changed. If anything, it's gotten worse. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the Everglades are doomed no matter what. At least I tried. She started walking backward toward the water. I could shoot her, claim self-defense, but that dead man's switch. The other victims, I called out. Where are they? Gone. Returned to nature. Their families will never have closure, but the Everglades has reclaimed what was taken from it. She reached the water's edge, where I now saw she had a kayak hidden. You have a choice, Nathaniel. Be the hero who saved Augustus Ravenshire, or be the ranger who let a killer escape. But remember, I know what you did with those drugs. We're not so different. I watched her paddle away, disappearing into the mangrove tunnels. Then I turned to Augustus, who was regaining consciousness, moaning in pain. I used the satellite phone in Morgana's shed to call for emergency evacuation. The official story was that I tracked Augustus to an abandoned campsite, finding him just as his kidnapper fled. I described Morgana, but claimed not to have seen her clearly. Augustus, traumatized and feverish, couldn't provide coherent details. The word carved into his forehead was attributed to the kidnapper's torture. Morgana Thornwick vanished completely. Her apartment was cleaned out, her research gone, no forwarding address. The FBI investigated but found no evidence of the murders she'd confessed to. The red X's on her map corresponded to areas where people had gone missing, but without bodies, there was no proof of foul play. Augustus recovered physically but never mentally. He sold his company, donated millions to environmental causes, and became a recluse. He sends me a letter every Christmas, thanking me for saving him, but also asking if I knew what Morgana had done to others, if I could have stopped her sooner. I never told anyone about the dead man's switch or the deal I made. Never reported the full extent of her confession. Never mentioned the other victims she claimed to have killed. I told myself it was to protect the Park Service, to prevent chaos. But really it was to protect myself. The guilt eats at me. Families are still searching for their loved ones, not knowing they were murdered by a vigilante biologist and fed to the ecosystem. They deserve closure, but giving it to them would mean admitting I let their killer go. I quit the Park Service a year later, officially due to PTSD from the rescue. The real reason was I couldn't walk those trails anymore without wondering how many bodies were hidden beneath the water, how many victims were scattered across the Sawgrass Plains. Sometimes I research missing persons cases from other wetland areas. Similar patterns in the Okefenokee Swamp, the Atchafalaya Basin, the Great Dismal Swamp. Developers and polluters vanishing without a trace. I wonder if Morgana started over somewhere else, or if there are others like her, self-appointed guardians taking deadly action. The drugs I burned that started all this? It turned out they belonged to a cartel that killed 3 people in retaliation when their product went missing. My vigilante justice caused more death than if I'd just followed procedure. Morgana was right about one thing. We were alike in our arrogance, thinking we knew better than the system. Augustus Ravenshire still bears the scar I gave him. Killer carved into his forehead, though plastic surgery has made it less obvious. He told people it was the kidnapper who did it. But I see the truth in his eyes when we occasionally cross paths. He knows it was me. He knows I chose to hurt him, to try to save him. That's the thing about trying to be a hero. Sometimes you become the villain in someone else's story. I carved that word into an innocent man's face. I let a serial killer escape. I chose my career over justice. I failed in every way that mattered. The Everglades continue to shrink. Development continues to encroach. Pollution continues to poison the waters. Morgana's extreme methods didn't save anything. If anything, the attention from Augustus's kidnapping led to increased security that made conservation efforts harder. I live with the knowledge that somewhere out there, Morgana Thornwick might still be killing in the name of environmental protection. That families are missing loved ones because I was too much of a coward to stop her, or too corrupt to turn her in. My therapist says I did the best I could under impossible circumstances. That I saved Augustus's life. That exposing everything would have caused more harm than good. But therapists are paid to make you feel better about your failures. The truth is simpler. I was given the choice between being a hero or protecting myself, and I chose myself. I let a killer go free to keep my own secrets. I mutilated an innocent man to maintain a cover story. I betrayed every oath I took as a ranger. The Everglades at night sound like screaming sometimes. The birds, the insects, the wind through the sawgrass. But I hear human voices in those sounds. The victims Morgana fed to the swamp. Augustus crying for help. My own conscience reminding me of what I've done. I've written this confession a dozen times, always destroying it before sending it to authorities. Because even now, years later, I'm still a coward. Still choosing my own comfort over justice. Still protecting myself rather than giving families the closure they deserve. Morgana was wrong about us being alike. She was a killer, but she believed in something. She had conviction, however twisted. I was just a coward who happened to wear a badge. When tested, she held to her beliefs. I abandoned mine the moment they became inconvenient. The Park Service never found out about the drugs I burned. That secret is safe. But the weight of all the other secrets, the victims I could have saved, the killer I could have stopped, that weight grows heavier every year. Sometimes I dream about that day in the swamp. In the dreams, I make different choices. Sometimes I shoot Morgana, consequences be damned. Sometimes I refuse to hurt Augustus and find another way. Sometimes I'm the hero I should have been. But dreams aren't reality. In reality, I'm Nathaniel Bleakwater, the ranger who failed, who tried to save someone and ended up damning himself, who learned that sometimes the person you're trying to rescue is yourself, and sometimes you're not worth saving. I still have the knife I used on Augustus. Keep it in a locked drawer, a reminder of what I'm capable of when pushed, of how easily good intentions can become evil actions, of how thin the line is between hero and villain. Augustus forgave me, officially, sent me a letter saying he understood I did what I had to do to save his life. But forgiveness from the victim doesn't erase the crime, doesn't change the fact that when given an impossible choice, I chose to become a torturer. The FBI still has Morgana Thornwick on their most wanted list. They don't know about the dead man's switch, about the deal I made. They think she's still out there somewhere, planning her next environmental execution. Maybe they're right. Maybe she lied about being tired, about giving up. Or maybe she's living peacefully somewhere, having found a different way to channel her passion. Maybe she became the hero she thought she was, just through legal means. I'll never know because I'll never look for her. Finding her would mean confronting my own failures again. The families of the missing still search, still put up posters, still hope. I see them sometimes when I visit Florida, their pain fresh even years later. Not knowing is its own kind of torture, but knowing would be worse. Knowing their loved ones were murdered for the crime of developing land, their bodies fed to alligators by a woman who thought she was saving the world. This is my confession, my burden, my shame. I was supposed to be one of the good guys. Instead, I became complicit in murder, torture, and cover-ups. All because I couldn't face the consequences of my own actions, couldn't risk my career and reputation for justice. The Everglades are dying. Morgana was right about that. Every year, more wetlands disappear. More species go extinct. More pollution poisons the water. Her methods were insane, evil, but her cause was real. Sometimes I wonder if doing nothing makes me worse than her. At least she tried, however horribly, to save something she loved. But that's just rationalization, another way to avoid facing the truth. The truth is, I'm a coward who let a killer go free, who tortured an innocent man, who chose self-preservation over justice. No amount of rationalization changes that. I live with it every day, the weight of those choices, the faces of the missing haunting me. Augustus's scream when I cut him, Morgana's disappointment when I failed her test, all of it mixing into a nightmare I can never wake from. This is what happens when you try to be a hero in a situation with no good choices. You become something worse than a villain. You become a coward who knows exactly what they've done wrong but lacks the courage to make it right. The Everglades continue to exist, damaged but enduring. The victims remain missing. Morgana remains free. Augustus remains scarred. And I remain haunted by the day I tried to save someone and lost myself instead. Some rangers quit because the job is too dangerous. Others because they can't handle the isolation. I quit because I discovered that when pushed to the limit I would choose myself over others. My secrets over justice. My comfort over truth. That's not the kind of person who should be protecting anything or anyone. That's the kind of person others need protection from. The uniform doesn't make you a hero, the badge doesn't make you good. They're just costumes that can hide the coward underneath. I was Ranger Nathaniel Bleakwater. I failed to save the people who needed saving. I let a killer escape. I became a torturer, and I've been too much of a coward to face the consequences. This confession changes nothing. The dead remain dead. The missing remain missing. The guilty remain free. But maybe, somehow, putting it in words makes the weight a little more bearable. Or maybe it just confirms what I've always known. I'm not a hero, I never was. I'm just another person who discovered their limits and found them shamefully low. Who learned that when tested, I would fail every important test. Who proved that sometimes the people we trust to protect us are the ones we should fear the most. The Everglades will outlive us all. Long after Morgana, Augustus, and I are gone, they'll still be there. Diminished, perhaps, but enduring. They've seen worse than us. They'll forget us. But I'll never forget what I became in their depths. A coward, a torturer, a failure. That's my legacy. That's my truth. That's my confession. My name is Zachariah Dreadmore, and I served as a park ranger in Olympic National Park for 19 years. What I encountered in the Hoh rainforest in the winter of 2017 made me flee Washington State and never return. There are things living in those ancient woods that should not exist. Families that have survived for generations by breaking humanity's most fundamental taboo. It started with reports from hikers on the Hoh River Trail. They spoke of feeling watched, of finding strange totems made from bones hanging from trees, of hearing what sounded like children singing old hymns deep in the forest where no children should be. Most disturbing were the reports of a smell, something cooking that smelled like pork, but somehow wrong, somehow familiar in a way that made people sick. The reports had been coming in for months, but we attributed them to overactive imaginations, maybe some transients camping illegally. The Hoh rainforest is one of the largest temperate rainforests in the U.S., with trees over 200 feet tall and undergrowth so dense you can't see more than a few yards in any direction. It's easy to get spooked in there, especially when the fog rolls in and the moss-draped trees look like giants looming over you. But then Marcus Winterbourne disappeared. He was an experienced solo hiker, the type who knew to file detailed plans and check in regularly. When he missed his return date, we launched a search immediately. His camp was found intact on the second day, tent still standing, food still packed, even his wallet and phone left behind. The only sign of struggle was blood on a tree nearby, too high up to have come from a normal injury. I was part of the search team that pushed deeper into the forest, into areas most hikers never reach. The old growth there is primordial, untouched for centuries. The canopy is so thick that even at noon it feels like dusk. The silence is oppressive, broken only by the constant drip of moisture from the moss. On the third day of searching, I found something that shouldn't exist. A structure built into the hollow of a massive cedar tree, camouflaged so well I almost walked past it. It was a dwelling of some kind, made from salvaged materials, tarp, corrugated metal, planks that looked like they'd been taken from old buildings, but it was the decorations that made my blood run cold. Bones, human bones, fashioned into wind chimes, carved into utensils, used as structural supports. Some still had dried tissue clinging to them. And the smell, that wrong pork smell the hikers had reported, it was overwhelming here. I called for backup immediately, but my radio only gave static. The dense forest and mountainous terrain made communications spotty at best. I marked the GPS coordinates and decided to investigate further while waiting for the rest of the team to reach my position. Inside the dwelling, I found evidence of a family living there. Makeshift beds, including child-sized ones. Clothes stitched together from various fabrics, some that looked disturbingly like hiking gear. And in what served as a kitchen area, a pot still warm over dying embers. I don't want to describe what was in that pot. Even now, years later, I can't think about it without feeling physically ill. But I needed evidence, so I took photos, documented everything even as my hand shook and my stomach churned. That's when I heard the singing. Children's voices, high and sweet, singing an old hymn I recognized from my grandmother's church. Shall we gather at the river? But the words were wrong, twisted into something profane. Shall we gather at the river, where bright angel feet have trod, with its crystal tide forever, flowing with the blood of God? I hid behind the massive cedar trunk as they approached. A family of 7, a woman who looked ancient despite moving with surprising agility, 4 children ranging from maybe 6 to 16, and 2 adult men. They were dressed in a patchwork of fabrics and furs, their hair long and matted with moss and dirt. But it was their faces that haunt me most. They looked normal, not deformed or monstrous. Just people, except for their eyes. Empty of everything except a terrible hunger. The youngest child was dragging something behind him, something wrapped in a tarp that left a dark trail in the moss. The old woman, who I would later learn was called Temperance Bone Creek, seemed to sense something was wrong. She stopped, sniffing the air like an animal, then spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding stones. "We have a visitor, children. Someone new has blessed our home." One of the men, a giant of a person with arms like tree trunks, started circling the cedar. I knew I had seconds before they found me. I did the only thing I could think of. I stepped out with my hands visible, trying to appear non-threatening. "I'm a park ranger," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "I'm searching for a missing hiker. Have you seen anyone?" Temperance smiled, revealing teeth that had been filed to points. "Many come through our forest. Some stay for dinner." The children giggled at this, a sound that made my skin crawl. The teenager, a boy with his mother's dark eyes, was playing with something in his hands. Marcus Winterbourne's compass, I realized with horror. "You live out here?" I asked, stalling for time, hoping my team would arrive soon. "4 generations now," Temperance said proudly. "Since my grandmother fled the cities and their judgment. The forest provides everything we need: shelter, water, meat." "What kind of meat?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "The sweetest kind," she said, and the children giggled again. "The kind that walks on 2 legs and thinks itself superior to nature. The kind that builds cities and forgets the old ways." The larger man, who Temperance called Absalom, had found my trail. He was following it back the way I'd come, and I realized with growing dread that he would find my gear, my radio, proof that I'd called for help. "You've called others," Temperance said. Not a question, but a statement. "They'll come looking for you, for him." She gestured to the tarp the child had been dragging. "More meat," one of the children said excitedly. "Can we keep this one fresh, grandmother? The last one died too quickly." I reached for my weapon, but Absalom was faster than his size suggested. He grabbed my wrist, crushing it with inhuman strength. The gun fell into the moss as I cried out in pain. "The forest is angry," Temperance said conversationally as Absalom held me. "Too many visitors, too much noise. But we keep the balance. We take only what we need, use every part, waste nothing." She approached me, running a filed fingernail down my cheek, drawing blood. She tasted it, considered. "Healthy, strong. You'll feed us for weeks." "People know where I am," I managed to say through the pain. "They'll come looking." "Let them come," she said. "The forest is vast, and we know every tree, every ravine, every place to hide a body. Your predecessors learned this." "Predecessors?" She gestured to the bone decorations. "Rangers, hikers, hunters, all who ventured too deep, saw too much. The forest keeps our secrets, and we keep the forest's balance." I heard voices in the distance, my search team calling my name. Temperance heard them too and sighed as if disappointed. Too many for us to handle quietly. "Children, prepare for the old escape." The family moved with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, they had packed their essential items, including the pot and its horrific contents. The children knew exactly what to take and what to leave. They'd done this before, many times. Temperance turned back to me as Absalom released my crushed wrist. "You can bring them here, show them what you found. But we'll be gone, and you'll sound like a madman. Or you can say nothing, and we'll ensure you never have to see us again." "You're murderers. Cannibals." "We're survivors," she corrected. "Living as humanity did before civilization made them weak. The Donner Party, the Alfred Packer expedition, the Franklin's Lost expedition, they all learned what we've always known. When survival is at stake, meat is meat." The search team's voices were getting closer. Temperance made a clicking sound with her tongue, and the family began to melt into the forest. But the teenage boy stopped, turned back to me. We'll be watching you, Ranger Dreadmore. You and your family in that nice house on Maple Street. Your wife with the garden. Your 2 little girls who wait at the bus stop alone." My blood turned to ice. They knew about my family, had been watching us. Temperance pulled the boy along. "Just insurance, Ranger. Keep our secret, and we keep our distance. Break it, and well, meat is meat." They vanished into the undergrowth as completely as if they'd never existed. By the time my team arrived, I was alone in an empty dwelling that could have been abandoned for years. The bones were gone, the pot was gone, even the blood trail had been covered with fresh moss. I told them I'd found an old transient camp, nothing significant. Showed them around, but didn't point out the subtle signs I could see. The worn paths hidden under strategically placed ferns. The scratch marks on trees that served as trail markers. The small bones they'd missed in their hurried evacuation. We never found Marcus Winterbourne. Officially, he was lost to the wilderness, another casualty of nature's indifference. But I knew the truth. I'd seen his compass in that boy's hands, had smelled what was in that pot. I requested a transfer the next week, citing family reasons. Moved my wife and daughters to Colorado, as far from the Olympic Peninsula as I could get while still working for the Park Service. But even there, I never felt safe, because here's what truly haunts me. Temperance was right about the forest being vast, about there being places to hide. The Olympic National Park covers nearly 1 million acres. How many families like hers are out there? How many have been living in those woods for generations, passing down their horrific traditions? I did research after I left. Disappearances in Olympic National Park going back decades. Patterns that suggested certain areas were hunting grounds. Reports from as far back as the 1920s about strange families in the deep woods, about missing hikers, about that wrong smell of cooking meat. The Park Service knows on some level. There are areas marked as environmentally sensitive that are off limits to hikers, areas where rangers don't patrol alone. Areas where disappearances are automatically attributed to natural causes without investigation. It's an unspoken agreement. They stay in the deep woods, take only occasional visitors, and the Park Service doesn't launch full-scale hunts for them. Because finding them would mean admitting they exist, admitting the Park Service has known and done nothing, admitting that we've been feeding visitors to cannibals for generations. I lasted 2 more years with the Park Service before the guilt and fear broke me. Every missing hiker report, I wondered if they'd wandered into the wrong part of the forest. Every time I saw families camping with children, I wanted to warn them to stay on the marked trails, to never venture into the old growth alone. My own daughters grew up terrified of forests because of my paranoia. I wouldn't let them camp, wouldn't let them hike, could barely let them play in wooded parks without watching obsessively. My wife left me, said I'd become consumed by fear of something I wouldn't explain. But how could I explain? How could I tell her that there are families in our national parks who have been hunting and eating people for generations? That the Park Service knows and does nothing? That we're all complicit in murder by silence? The dreams are the worst. I dream of that family, of Temperance's filed teeth and empty eyes, of the children singing their corrupted hymns while preparing their horrific meals, of Absalom's inhuman strength and the boy's casual threat against my family. But mostly, I dream of the ones I didn't save. Marcus Winterbourne, and all the others who vanished into those woods. I could have exposed the truth, could have forced an investigation, but I was too afraid for my own family, too worried about my career, too terrified of not being believed. So I stayed silent, and the hunting continued. More hikers vanished. More families fed on human flesh in the depths of the rainforest. More rangers found evidence and, like me, chose silence over truth. I know Temperance is still out there. She'd be ancient now, but something about that family seemed beyond normal aging, as if their diet had changed them fundamentally. The children would be adults, probably with children of their own, teaching them the old ways, the family traditions. Sometimes I get reports from former colleagues about disappearances in Olympic. The patterns are the same: solo hikers in remote areas, camps found intact but abandoned, that smell of wrong meat that makes searchers sick, and always the search called off too quickly, the area marked as too dangerous to continue. I've been told by other retired rangers, in quiet conversations after too many drinks, that every national park has them. Families or individuals who've gone feral, who've crossed the line into cannibalism and can't come back. The parks are so vast, the wilderness so unforgiving, that they can exist for generations without being officially discovered. Yellowstone has its valley people. Yosemite has the night singers. The Everglades has the mud families. Different names, same horror. People who've reverted to humanity's darkest impulses and made homes in our supposedly protected wilderness. The government must know. There's no way they couldn't. But acknowledging them would mean admitting failure. Admitting that our national parks aren't the safe, controlled environments we pretend they are. It would destroy tourism, create panic, demand action that might be impossible to deliver. So the secret continues. Rangers like me find evidence and stay quiet. Families like Temperance's continue their traditions. Hikers continue to disappear, and everyone pretends it's just the natural dangers of the wilderness. I've considered going to the media, writing a book, posting online. But who would believe me? A disgraced ex-ranger talking about cannibal families in national parks. I'd be dismissed as a conspiracy theorist, another crazy person seeking attention. And there's still the threat. The boy knew where my family lived. Even in Colorado, I'd find signs that we were being watched. A bone charm hanging from our mailbox. Scratch marks on trees near our house. My daughter's name's written in the dirt at the playground. They were reminding me of our agreement. My silence for my family's safety. Even hundreds of miles away, they could reach us if they wanted. The network of these families is larger than anyone imagines, connected by old traditions and shared secrets. I'm writing this now because I'm dying. Cancer, ironically. The thing that's killing me has nothing to do with the horrors I witnessed. But I need someone to know the truth before I'm gone. Need to confess my cowardice in staying silent. If you hike in Olympic National Park, stay on the marked trails. Never camp alone in the backcountry. If you smell meat cooking where no one should be camping, leave immediately. If you hear children singing in the deep woods, run. And if you're a ranger who finds evidence of them, don't be like me. Don't choose silence. Don't let fear control you. Because every person who disappears, every hiker who vanishes, their blood is on the hands of those of us who knew and said nothing. Temperance Bone Creek and her family are real. They're out there right now, in the Hoh Rainforest or somewhere similar. They're watching for solo hikers, for people who won't be immediately missed. They're teaching their children the old ways, preparing the next generation of hunters. The bones in their dwelling were from dozens of victims over who knows how many years. Each one a person with a life, a family, dreams. Each one reduced to meat and decorations, their disappearance explained away as a hiking accident. I carry their weight with me, every single one. The ones I could have saved if I'd spoken up. The ones who came after because I stayed silent. The families who still search, who still hope. Not knowing their loved ones became food for monsters wearing human faces. The Olympic Peninsula is beautiful. The Hoh Rainforest is a natural wonder. But underneath that beauty is a darkness that the Park Service refuses to acknowledge. Families that have reverted to our species' most primitive state. Hunters who know every tree, every trail, every place to ambush the unwary. They're protected by the vastness of the wilderness and the complicity of those who know but stay silent. Protected by the disbelief of those who can't imagine such things exist in modern America. Protected by the fear of people like me who discovered the truth and chose self-preservation over justice. I'll be dead soon. This confession will be all that's left of what I know. Maybe it will be dismissed as the ramblings of a dying man. Maybe it will disappear like so many hikers have disappeared. Or maybe, just maybe, someone will read it and understand that our national parks hide secrets darker than most can imagine. When I'm gone, there will be one less person who knows the truth about the Bone Creek family. One less witness to the horror hidden in the Hoh rainforest. But they'll still be there, still hunting, still feeding, still teaching their children that when survival is at stake, meat is meat. I failed in my duty as a ranger. Failed to protect the people who trusted that our parks were safe. Failed to stop predators who hunt humans like deer. Failed to speak the truth when it mattered. This is my confession, my warning, my plea. Don't trust the deep wilderness. Don't assume you're safe because you're in a national park. Don't ignore the signs, the bones, the smell, the singing in the distance. And if you're a ranger who finds what I found, be braver than I was. Don't let them threaten you into silence. Don't let them continue their traditions. Don't let more people disappear into cooking pots in the forest. Because once you know the truth and stay silent, you become part of it. Every disappearance, every death, every family destroyed by loss, it's on you. The guilt will eat you alive, more surely than any cannibal family ever could. I was Ranger Zachariah Dreadmore. I found monsters in Olympic National Park, and I let them live. I chose my family's safety over the lives of strangers. I became complicit in murder through my cowardice. The Bone Creek family is still out there, still hunting, still feeding, and I did nothing to stop them. May God forgive me, because I never will. My name is Cornelius Grimwald, and I spent 21 years as a park ranger in Shenandoah National Park. The discovery I made in the fall of 2020 ended my career and nearly ended my life. Sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones who smile at you every morning, who know your routine better than you do, who've been watching and waiting for years. It started with a routine trail maintenance check on the White Oak Canyon Trail. October in Shenandoah is breathtaking, with the fall colors drawing thousands of visitors. But there are parts of the park that remain isolated even during peak season, old fire roads and service trails that only rangers use. I was checking erosion damage from recent heavy rains when I noticed something odd. A game trail that I'd passed hundreds of times had fresh human footprints leading off into the undergrowth. Not unusual by itself, but these prints showed someone carrying significant weight, deep impressions, shortened stride length, drag marks between steps. My first thought was an injured hiker. I followed the trail, pushing through mountain laurel and rhododendron thickets. About a quarter-mile in, the footprints ended at a small clearing. The ground had been recently disturbed, leaves and debris carefully arranged to look natural, but not quite succeeding. I should have called it in immediately, should have waited for backup. But 21 years of experience made me overconfident. I started carefully removing the leaves and branches, revealing freshly turned earth underneath. I didn't have to dig far. 6 inches down, I found plastic sheeting, industrial grade, thick and black. My heart was pounding as I cut through it with my utility knife. What I found inside made me stumble backward, reaching for my radio. It was a woman recently deceased, maybe a week at most. She was wearing hiking clothes, had no identification, and showed signs of violence I won't describe here. But what chilled me most was how methodically she'd been wrapped, how carefully she'd been buried. This wasn't a crime of passion or panic. This was practiced, professional. As I called for emergency backup and the crime scene team, I noticed something else. More disturbed ground nearby. Similar patterns of carefully arranged forest debris. My mind reeled as I counted at least a dozen such spots in this small clearing. The FBI arrived within hours. The area was cordoned off, and the exhumation began. By nightfall, they'd found 4 bodies in various stages of decomposition. By the end of the week, they'd found 17. All hikers who'd gone missing over the past 3 years. All buried with the same methodical care. The investigation was massive but quiet. The Park Service didn't want panic during peak tourist season. The FBI set up a covert operation, believing the killer might return to the burial ground. They had profiles, theories, suspects from among the local population. They were looking in the wrong place. I knew something they didn't. Recognized something in the pattern of the burials, the careful arrangement, the specific type of plastic used. I'd seen it before in our equipment shed. The same heavy-duty sheeting we used for covering sensitive archaeological sites during bad weather. The killer wasn't from the local population. The killer was one of us. I started my own investigation, careful not to alert anyone. I pulled duty rosters for the past 3 years, cross-referencing them with disappearance dates, looking for patterns, for who was working when hikers vanished, who had access to the areas where they'd gone missing. One name kept appearing: Prudence Shadowmere, a senior ranger who'd been with the park for 15 years. She was respected, dedicated, often volunteered for solo backcountry patrols. She knew every trail, every hiding spot, every place where someone could disappear without being seen. But Prudence was also my friend. We'd worked together for over a decade. She'd been at my daughter's wedding, had helped me through my divorce, had saved my life once when I'd fallen into a ravine during a storm. The idea that she could be a serial killer seemed impossible. Yet the evidence was mounting. She'd been on duty for every disappearance. She had access to the plastic sheeting. She knew the burial ground area intimately, had even suggested it be closed to hikers due to erosion concerns the previous year. I needed proof before I could go to the FBI. Accusing a fellow ranger without solid evidence would destroy my career and potentially let the real killer escape. So I decided to watch her, to follow her during her solo patrols. For 2 weeks, nothing unusual happened. Prudence did her job with the same professionalism she always had. She was friendly, helpful, even assisted in the ongoing investigation by providing detailed maps of remote areas. I started to doubt myself, wondering if grief and stress were making me paranoid. Then, on October 31st, Halloween night, everything changed. Most of the rangers were at the park's family Halloween event, but Prudence had volunteered for night patrol in the backcountry. Said she preferred the quiet to dealing with sugar-rushed kids. I told everyone I was heading home with a headache, but instead positioned myself on the trail I knew she'd take. I watched her pass my hiding spot around 10 p.m., moving with purpose deeper into the park. I followed at a distance, using night vision goggles I'd borrowed from the search and rescue equipment. She was heading toward the burial ground, but taking a circuitous route that avoided all the FBI surveillance. She knew about the investigation, knew where they were watching, and she knew how to avoid them. I followed her to a different clearing about half a mile from the original burial ground. There, hidden under a camouflaged tarp, was something that made my blood freeze. A young hiker, bound and gagged but alive, unconscious from what looked like sedation. Prudence stood over him for a long moment, then spoke, not to him, but to the forest itself. "Number 23, she said calmly. "Male, approximately 25, traveling alone from Maryland. No family checking in, no regular contacts, perfect selection. She began preparing the plastic sheeting with the same methodical care I'd seen at the burial sites. But then she paused, turned, and looked directly at where I was hidden. "You can come out, Cornelius. I've known you were following me since Pine Ridge." My heart stopped. I stayed frozen, hoping she was bluffing, but she sighed and continued. "You're breathing, Cornelius. After 20 years working together, I know your breathing pattern better than my own. Plus, you're wearing that cologne your daughter gave you. Cedar and pine. Distinctive." I stepped out, hand on my weapon. "Prudence, what have you done?" She smiled, the same warm smile I'd seen thousands of times. "My job. Protecting the park. By killing hikers. By maintaining balance. Do you know how many people disappear in national parks every year? Officially, about 600. Unofficially, thousands. They damage the ecosystem, leave trash, destroy habitats. The park can only sustain so much human intrusion." "You're insane." "Am I?" Climate change, overdevelopment, pollution, they're all symptoms of too many people. I'm just doing my small part to restore balance. One hiker at a time. I drew my weapon, hands shaking. "Let him go, Prudence, it's over." She laughed, a sound that chilled me more than any scream could. "Is it? Do you think I'm the only one? There's a network of us, Cornelius. Rangers, guides, conservation officers, all working to protect our wilderness areas from the real threat. Humanity." "You're lying. Remember the conference in Yosemite 5 years ago? The breakout session on population management in protected areas? That wasn't about wildlife, Cornelius. It was recruitment. 37 of us agreed that direct action was necessary." My mind reeled. I remembered that conference, that session. I hadn't attended, but Prudence had, along with dozens of other rangers from parks across the country. "The FBI will stop you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The FBI is looking for a serial killer, a lone wolf. They have no idea they're dealing with an organization. Even if they catch me, the work continues. Every national park has at least one of us, sometimes more." She moved toward the unconscious hiker, a knife appearing in her hand. I shouted for her to stop, but she didn't even pause. I had no choice. I fired. The shot echoed through the forest. Prudence fell, clutching her shoulder, the knife dropping into the leaves. I rushed forward, kicking the weapon away, using my radio to call for immediate backup and medical assistance. Prudence looked up at me, her face twisted not in pain, but disappointment. "You've doomed them all, Cornelius. Every hiker who dies because the parks are overrun, their blood is on your hands. You're sick, Prudence. You need help. I need dedication like mine to become the norm, not the exception. 50 years from now, when these parks are destroyed by human greed, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember that you could have been part of the solution." The FBI and medical teams arrived within minutes. Prudence was arrested, the hiker was saved, and the media had their sensational story. Female park ranger serial killer captured in Shenandoah. The coverage was endless, focusing on how someone trusted to protect visitors had been hunting them instead. But the investigation that followed revealed something far more disturbing than one rogue ranger. Prudence's computer contained encrypted communications with dozens of other individuals across the country. The FBI managed to decode some of it, revealing a loose network of environmental extremists who'd infiltrated various conservation organizations. They called themselves the Culling, and their mission was simple: reduce human impact on protected lands by reducing humans. The FBI made several arrests in other parks, but many members of the Culling simply vanished. Their last message, sent the day after Prudence's arrest, was chilling. The work continues. Nature will reclaim what is hers, one body at a time. I testified at Prudence's trial. She was convicted of 17 murders, though she claimed the real number was much higher. She showed no remorse, maintaining throughout that she was a soldier in a war most people didn't even know was being fought. During the trial, she said something that haunts me still. Cornelius thinks he's a hero for stopping me, but every year more parks close to protect them from overuse. More species go extinct from habitat loss. More wilderness gets developed. I was trying to save what we love, just using methods society isn't ready to accept. She was sentenced to life without parole. The hiker I saved, Timothy Morrison, thanked me personally, said I'd given him a second chance at life. The Park Service gave me a commendation. The media called me a hero. But I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like someone who'd discovered a horrifying truth too late to make a real difference. Because here's what the public doesn't know. The culling is still active. Rangers still disappear from their posts, only to be replaced by others who might be members. Hikers still vanish in statistically improbable numbers. Bodies are still being found in remote areas, years after going missing. The Park Service increased security, implemented new screening procedures, created oversight committees. But how do you stop an ideology? How do you prevent people who genuinely believe they're saving the planet from taking extreme action? I quit the Park Service 6 months after the trial. Couldn't walk those trails knowing what they'd been used for. Couldn't look at other rangers without wondering if they were part of the culling. Couldn't guide visitors through the park knowing I might be leading them to their deaths. The burial ground in Shenandoah was excavated completely. Final count was 31 bodies, dating back 7 years. Prudence had been killing long before she joined the culling. They hadn't created her. They'd just given her a support network and a philosophy to justify what she was already doing. I moved to the city, as far from national parks as I could get, but even here I see them sometimes. People wearing Park Service uniforms who look at crowds with the same calculating expression Prudence had. Tour guides who speak a little too passionately about protecting nature from human damage. Conservation activists whose rhetoric sounds eerily familiar. The culling didn't end with Prudence's arrest. If anything, it made them more careful, more subtle. They learned from her mistakes, adapted their methods. The FBI task force dedicated to finding them was quietly disbanded after 2 years with no new leads. Sometimes I get emails from anonymous accounts, pictures of pristine wilderness with no people in them, statistics about declining visitor numbers in certain parks, news articles about missing hikers. They're reminding me that they're still out there, still working toward their goal. The most terrifying part is that I sometimes understand their logic. Not their methods, never their methods, but their motivation. The parks are being loved to death. Trails eroded by millions of feet. Wildlife stressed by constant human presence. Ecosystems disrupted by people who just want a selfie with nature. Prudence was wrong to kill, but was she wrong about the problem? Every year, more people visit national parks. Every year, more damage is done. Every year, we lose a little more of what makes these places special. But murder isn't the answer. It can't be. There has to be another way to protect our wilderness without becoming the very monsters we claim to stand against. I still have nightmares about that clearing. Not just about the bodies we found, but about the ones we didn't find. Prudence admitted to at least 40 kills, but we only found 31. The others are still out there, somewhere in the vast wilderness of Shenandoah, slowly returning to the earth. Their families still search, still hope. They put up missing posters at trailheads, organize volunteer search parties, maintain Facebook pages asking for information. They don't know their loved ones became victims of a woman who thought she was saving the planet one death at a time. Deputy Ephraim Coldbrook, who led the FBI investigation, told me something before I quit that I've never forgotten. We caught Prudence, but she was just one tentacle of something much larger. The culling has members in parks we haven't even identified yet. Rangers, maintenance staff, even some administrators. They're patient, they're careful, and they're committed. This isn't over. He was right. Last month, 8 hikers disappeared across 4 different national parks in a single week. All solo travelers, all in remote areas, all without immediate family to report them missing quickly. The pattern is familiar. The methodology consistent with what Prudence taught her network. The Park Service maintains there's no connection, that these are isolated incidents. But I know better. The culling is still active, still hunting, still believing they're heroes in a war against humanity's impact on nature. I've been told by former colleagues that there's now an unofficial protocol among rangers. Never patrol alone in certain areas. Never investigate suspicious activity without backup. Never trust anyone completely, even fellow rangers you've known for years. The paradise of our national parks has become a paranoid nightmare for those who know the truth. Every missing hiker could be a victim. Every fellow ranger could be a killer. Every beautiful trail could lead to a burial ground. This is my story, my warning, my burden. I was a ranger who discovered a serial killer in my midst, who stopped her, but not the movement she was part of. I saved one life, but couldn't save the dozens who came before, or the unknown numbers who've come after. Prudence Shadowmere is in prison, but her ideology lives on. The culling continues their work, believing themselves to be ecological warriors rather than murderers. They're out there right now, in parks across the country, selecting their next victims from among the millions of innocent visitors who trust that rangers are there to protect them. Some nights, I think about Timothy Morrison, the hiker I saved. He sent me a Christmas card last year, a photo of him with his new wife and baby. A life that exists because I was in the right place at the right time. It helps, a little, to know that at least one person survived. But then I think about the 31 we found in that burial ground. The 40 or more Prudence claimed. The hundreds or thousands. The culling might have killed nationwide. The weight of those deaths, even though I didn't cause them, crushes me. Because I was a ranger, I was supposed to protect people. And for over a decade, I worked alongside a serial killer and never knew. Shared coffee with her, trusted her with my life. Called her friend while she was murdering the very people we'd sworn to protect. How did I miss it? How did we all miss it? Or did some know and choose to stay silent, either from fear or agreement with her cause? These questions torment me, will probably torment me until I die. The national parks are still beautiful, still worth visiting, still treasures that need protection. But now you know what I know, that among those sworn to protect these places are some who've decided that protection means eliminating human visitors. Be careful out there. Stay on marked trails. Never hike alone. Check in regularly. And if a ranger seems too interested in your plans, too insistent that you take a certain trail, too eager to know if anyone's expecting you back, trust your instincts. Because Prudence Shadowmere wasn't unique. She was just the one who got caught. The others learned from her mistakes. They're still out there, still hunting, still believing that every hiker they bury brings them closer to saving the wilderness. I was Ranger Cornelius Grimwald. I found a burial ground that revealed a horror beyond imagination. I stopped one killer, but discovered a network I couldn't defeat. I saved one life, but carry the weight of all those I couldn't save. The wilderness is beautiful, but dangerous. Not just from natural threats, but from those who've appointed themselves its ultimate protectors. They walk among us, wearing the same uniforms as heroes, hiding their true nature behind smiles and helpful directions. The culling is real, they're patient, they're committed, and they're still out there.